Agriculture basically is divided into five sectors: major crops, which are also known as cash crops; minor crops, fisheries, forestry, and livestock. All these five sectors contribute towards the agriculture sector. And about the agriculture sector, I want you to learn about the basic structure of agriculture in Pakistan, which is actually the current structure. I've shared a screen with you people, which contains the data and information of agriculture sector of Pakistan, and this data is latest data provided by Pakistan Economic Survey. So the information comes from Pakistan Economic Survey 2018-19. I will be sharing this document on your Moodle as well, so that you may read it or you may go through it while preparing lectures at home. Anyhow, so just to give you an overview, let us wait for Azan for a minute or two, then we will continue. Okay, so I was talking about agriculture sector. Agriculture sector of Pakistan. I told you people its division, and the division is based upon five main components, five main sectors. Now, just to start discussion on the current scenario, the current situation of agriculture in Pakistan. Agriculture sector has shown an estimated growth of 0.85%, which is a very low growth rate, keeping in mind that maximum proportion of our population is engaged in the agriculture sector. This slow growth rate is because of certain reasons. There are three reasons written here. One of the reason is underperformance, or one of the reason of underperformance is area of cultivation, a reduction in the area of cultivation. The second reason is lower water availability, and the third is written here is drop in the fertilizer offtake. That means because of these three problems, because of these three issues, because of these three problems, the agriculture sector in Pakistan has not been able to give a good handsome growth rate. The area of cultivation has reduced, then the water problem is also there. We will also discuss the topic of water crisis. Then there is a drop in the fertilizer offtake. We will also discuss this issue when we will discuss the problems of agriculture sector. Now, discussing the agriculture sector's further division, and amongst the further division, the crop sector, the overall crop sector, which includes the major crops as well as the minor crops, witnessed a negative growth of 4.4%. That means there is a decline of the growth in the crops sector in the time period of 2018-2019. And this negative growth rate is because of the negative growth rate of major crops. You see over here is mainly due to the negative growth of important or major crops, negative growth of 6.6%. Now, major crops, in the major crops, three further major crops, cotton, rice, and sugarcane. These three major crops, production has declined by 17.5%, 3.3%, and 19.4%. So the overall crop sector in the agriculture sector of Pakistan has a negative growth of 4.4%. That negative growth is because of the major crops, because of the important crops. And important and major crops growth rate is also negative, that is 6.6%. And this 6.6% in the important crops is because of the slow growth or decline in the growth of rice, cotton, and sugarcane. Only wheat amongst the major crops posted a marginal growth of 0.5%. Means only wheat is amongst the major crops the only crop which showed a positive growth of 0.5%. Only 0.5%. It's not even 1% growth. And maize 6.9%. So the crop sector, because of the important crops, has not performed good. Now, decrease in the, now I have just mentioned that there is a decline in the growth of cotton, in the production of cotton. Because of the decline in the production of cotton, there is a decline in the cotton ginning as well. Cotton ginning is, the concept of cotton ginning is separating cotton from its seeds. from the farms. That is cotton ginning. Now the other crops, these are the other crops. Other crops have shown a growth of 1.95%. Means other crops or the minor crops, they have shown a growth of 1.9%, and that growth is because of the growth of pulses and oil seeds. Overall, other crops has a share of 11.21% in the agriculture. Means amongst the 5 sectors, that is major crops, minor crops, forestry, fisheries, and livestock, the share of the major share of the other crops is 11.21%, and the share of major crops in total GDP of Pakistan is 2.8%. Then is the livestock sector. Livestock has a share of 60.54% in agriculture. Means it is the largest sector in our agriculture, livestock. And livestock contributes 11.2% in GDP of Pakistan, which is also uh, a good number. And it also showed a growth that is positive in nature of 4%. That means livestock in the agriculture sector has largest share in the agriculture sector. It is one of the sectors, it is one of the area of agriculture which contributes which largely contributes towards the GDP of Pakistan. That is 11.25% in agriculture, and sorry, that is 11.22% in GDP. Then is forestry. Forestry actually remained at 6.47% growth rate, and this mainly is because of the production of timber in KPK. Timber is a form of wood that is produced in KPK. The last sector is fishing and fishing and forestry collectively. This forestry and the fishing collectively, they contribute 2.1% towards the agriculture sector, and the value addition or the contribution of fishing is only 0.79 in agriculture and 6.47 of forestry in the agriculture. This yellow written area, this one, is the further detail, further explanation of the growth rates of minor crops in Pakistan. Why I marked it yellow is because this is a minute detail. This is in-depth detail. Just for your information, you can go through it and you can have a reading for your clarification that how our minor crops are contributing or how they are progressing. Now, the next information written here is about the availability of water. That in the start, I told you people over here that agriculture sector's performance is reduced because of these 3 reasons. Because of the reduction in the cultivation area, our major and minor crops has not performed good. That is why the crop sector, the overall crop sector, has a negative growth rate. Now, the second issue discussed here is the lower water availability, which over here is discussed, the second issue, because of which our agriculture has only growth rate of 0.85%. Now, the availability of water is for 2 crops. One type of crop, we name it kharif crops. These are the kharif crops. The other is known as Rabi season crops. Kharif crops, the time period of kharif crops are from April, June up to October, December. Means these crops are cultivated from the start of April till the June, and they are ready by the start of by the start of October till December. And there is a shortage of water in the time period of kharif crops. The recorded availability of water is 59.6 million acre foot or million acre feet. MAF or million acre feet is the measure of availability of water. This is how we measure the flow or availability of water. So from April, June to October, December, there is a recorded availability of water that is 59.6 million acre feet, which is 11.2% short of the requirement. The requirement was 67.1 million acre feet. Now the question arises that this time period is normally the time period in which uh, there is presence of warm weather, or the climate is warm. Climatic conditions, they are warm. And during the climatic conditions, during the warm climatic conditions, the ice that is melted, and we can have a increased flow of water. When we say we can have an increased flow of water, then why there is a shortage? The reason of the shortage is because we do not have storage facility. Now, during the Rabi season, the availability was recorded as 24.8 million acre foot, which is 2.5% increase as compared to the previous year. That means there was no shortage of water availability for the crops which are sown in October, December till the April, June, but there is a shortage of availability of water for the kharif crops. Moving forward, this is the detail of the usage of fertilizers. The third issue that I told you people is of fertilizer offtake. This detail is about the fertilizer shortage, fertilizer issue in Pakistan. You just have to go through it. That is also a minute detail. Just for your overview, though the domestic production of fertilizers increased by 2.6%, but it has not been sufficient enough to meet the needs of the agriculture sector. So when you will study, just go through it and give it a reading, and then you'll understand the concept. Moving forward, the concept of agriculture credit is also mentioned here. The concept of agriculture credit is that in the agriculture sector, sometimes people are in need of some credit. Sometimes people do not have money to invest. People do not have money to work on their fields. So what they do is they go for credit, they go for loans. When they go for loans, then in the agriculture sector, we have an advisory committee that is known as Agriculture Credit Advisory Committee. The role of this advisory committee is to formulate such a mechanism in which the credit is given to the farmers who are short of funds. So that credit, the target of that credit was rupees 1250 billion for the year 2018-19, means 1250 billion rupees was the target set by Agriculture Credit Advisory Committee, that this much amount would be given as a loan, as a credit to the farmers who are short of funds. And this 1250 billion rupees were to be distributed through 50 institutions. Amongst them, 19 are commercial banks, 2 are specialized banks, 5 are Islamic banks, 11 are microfinance banks, 30 are microfinance institutions and rural support programs. But this 12.5 billion was not distributed among the farmers. Only 805 billion was disbursed to the farmers. Rest of the amount was not distributed, or the target was not met. And amongst the total, only 805 billion has been distributed, which is 64% of the annual target. That means the target of giving credit to the farmers in Pakistan was not met, and only 64% target was met. In the last, it's written that agriculture, in terms of total borrowers, has increased 4 billion. Agriculture outreach in terms of borrowers, showing a rise of 8.2% over 3.72 million borrowers at the end of June. That means the borrowers in the agriculture sector who are in need of agriculture credit, who are in need of loans, who are in need of some kind of support and help from the government, the number of the borrowers has increased. Now, this whole document is about the agriculture recent trends, which contains the data from Pakistan Economic Survey 2018-19, and the conclusion of this topic is that overall agriculture sector has only grown 0.85%. This slow growth rate is because of the slow growth of the major crops and slow growth of the overall crop structure. The overall crop structure has a negative growth of 4.4%, whereas the major crops has a negative growth rate of 6.6%. There are certain other factors which have caused this slow growth of agriculture sector in Pakistan. One is availability of water, and second is the issue of fertilizers. The availability of water is low in the kharif crops, whereas it has been or the target has been met in the rabi crops. There has been a shortage of 11.2% of water availability in the season of kharif crops. Livestock being the largest sector of the agriculture sector, being the largest proportion of the agriculture sector, contributes 60.54% to the agriculture sector, and it contributes 11.2% to the overall GDP of Pakistan. Forestry and fisheries collectively contribute 2.1%. Then about the facilitation by the government to the people who are working in the agriculture sector who are short of funds, there is Agricultural Credit Advisory Committee which works on it. They have decided to disburse 1250 billion rupees to the farmers in 2018-19, whereas they have not been able to distribute this much amount uh, in the form of credit to the farmers, but they have only distributed 805 billion rupees. If you have any questions related to the agriculture recent trends of Pakistan, you may ask through chat. Kharif crops The Kharif and Rabi crops, it is a division of the crops uh, based upon the time period of sowing of those crops. And AC is Agriculture Credit Advisory Committee, that is formulated by the government. The the task assigned, or the work this committee does is that they give credit, they give loans to uh, the people in the agriculture sector who are in need of loans, who are in need of some kind of help. Any other question? Okay. Amongst the famous, or amongst the most prominent kharif crops, one is known as cotton, rice, sugarcane. These are the kharif crops. And amongst the rabi crops, wheat is a rabi crop that is sown in winter.